Head-to-head.
Well, joining me this morning, I'm delighted to say Joe Ryle, who's a former Labour advisor, and Fiona Conor, who's come all the way from Yorkshire this morning on a very early train, Managing Director of Trust Electric Heating. Good morning.
Good morning.
So you've come all the way from Yorkshire.
Yes.
You run a small business.
Yes, in Yorkshire.
How big is the small business?
Well, we moved from 16 people last year to 51 this year.
Congratulations.
So quite a big growth.
Yeah.
We're a manufacturer of an efficient electric radiator. Great business, but we serve the whole of the UK.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Congratulations. I'll come on to questions there. And Joe, we've met before on a different subject, but just tell us a little bit about your background, former Labour advisor.
Yes, I'm a former Labour advisor during the years when Jeremy Corbyn was leader. And for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been running the 4-day week campaign, so campaigning for the 4-day working week and getting businesses to adopt.
Is that a good idea, 4-day working week?
Well, we had a bit of a discussion about this before we came
I'm sure you did.
Yeah.
And feisty way.
I think for manufacturing, and I mean, you gave me some really good points actually. For manufacturing, it could work if we split shifts. So yeah.
I can see it working in manufacturing. I think there are lots of examples where it doesn't work. Your thoughts? Can I just ask you? Jacob Rees-Mogg was notorious for going around the civil service and putting post-it notes saying "Get back to your desk," and there is a push from business to get back to your desk. Did he have a point?
You mean going back to work?
Going back to work.
At home?
Instead of working at home, get your bottom into the office. Yeah. It's good for you, morale, productivity.
I don't believe in working at home. No, I just think, and I think we agree on this, actually, we were talking about it earlier. I think some people can work at home. I think for me, with the culture that I've got at work, we've got an amazing culture, I'm very lucky, and I couldn't have that, and I don't think we'd have had the growth if my team were working at home. Yeah.
Now that's really interesting. Yeah. Your response, your riposte to that.
Well, I think where we agree is that I don't necessarily think working from home is the solution. I think workers are kind of crying out for more freedom, a bit more autonomy. But there's loads of downsides to working from home. It's a bit lonely. You don't have colleagues. So I think actually something like a 4-day working week where you're in the office a bit more is actually much more what I think should happen.
And I think that's right. I think also that, weirdly, I'm becoming left wing now about the right to switch off, the obsession with being with a phone the whole time, where people think it's okay to send you messages at 11 o'clock at night, for example, where your brain then stays awake the whole time. Let's just talk, though, shall we, about these headlines this morning. And I'm asking this question this morning: has the government got its priorities right? And Charlie made a brilliant point this morning, which is he was saying that in some ways Starmer is such a middle manager that he sort of operates policy by policy but doesn't link them together. And I think that's a fair comment. The front page of the Daily Telegraph: energy bills may rise in nuclear power push. So this is Ed Miliband again, this insane 2030 target when we contribute 1% of global emissions. Just in terms of that, here we go again. This is Ed Miliband saying that what we need to do is to get people to pay more now for your electricity, even though we're already spending a huge amount, so that private businesses invest in SMRs, and we can argue about the merits of that. Then meanwhile, you've got Rachel Reeves saying that actually we can't spend the money on defence because we haven't got it. Does Labour have a clear plan?
No, I don't. I think they've got, for me, for net zero, I sit in the net zero space because we're energy efficient.
Sure.
So looking at the deployment of the nuclear, I think we need other options. I think the challenge for the government, really, is how will they get it through? How long will it take them to get some of these new policies through?
But isn't that the point? Because I was saying I've been a huge fan of nuclear since I was a child. I grew up really near Sizewell, as it was then, the Magnox power station, then it became a PWR. We still haven't finished Sizewell C. Yeah. What are we doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think on nuclear, I think there's a bit of a debate, isn't there, on that? I mean, I know people in the environmental movement, some people think it's crucial as part of the mix. Some people say, actually, we need to be prioritising renewables.
But hang on a minute. If the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine, then we don't have the renewable capacity that we should have. Don't we need a stable base load? And that's what nuclear provides.
I don't even know where I stand on it necessarily, but I do think renewables should be prioritised. I do think we live on an island, it is very windy quite a lot of the time. And I think, even if you look at countries like China now, they have shown that the pace at which they're rolling out renewables, it is really possible to do this on a big scale. And I do think that should be the priority.
China's also building power stations, gas-fired power stations, coal-fired power stations.
I think we need more options. I think nuclear, we've got renewables. I know there's a lot of work in Yorkshire at the moment going on geothermal, and I think we need more options that are there. I just don't think we should have just one option for the country.
So let me come to you, Joe. How much trouble is Labour in? Because Keir Starmer's poll ratings are plummeting. I have never seen seen so many angry people. He is desperate to try and get on the front foot here. We've got the plan for change. He's got these, we were laughing earlier, he's got these milestones which are millstones. He's got pillars, he's got foundations, he's got whatever. More pledges, it's more rhetoric, it's just nonsense. And when you look at what he actually announced in this plan for change, there were two big things that stood out. Firstly, the 2030 net zero 100% has been dropped, so it is now 95%. And the goal of becoming the highest growth, economic growth in the G7 has also disappeared, and fiddling around the edges. Is he in charge of his own brief?
I mean, I'm no fan of Keir Starmer, maybe it's not a surprise. It doesn't feel like anyone is at the moment.
He's too right-wing for you.
Well, I mean, it's funny, isn't it? Because they talked about these kind of 6 milestones, now there's 6 missions. No one really knows what he's talking about. And I think that what that highlights, there is an incoherence at the centre of government. They don't really, it's not obvious what they stand for. I think there are some good policies happening there, you know, there sometimes.
Like what?
But I actually think some of the policies they brought forward on renewables, like, you know, actually, you know, really tackling climate change has been good.
In what sense?
In that, you know, climate change. Give me
an example.
Well, I think climate change is one of the biggest issues we ever face.
Give me
and so that they're allowing now you can have turbines on land. So that's onshore. That's what it's called. Sorry, onshore. They've allowed that for the first time. The Tories blocked that for a long time. I think that was a really good policy. But I don't think they're telling the story as part of a vision for the country. And actually, when people are feeling, you know, it's been a long time. People were feeling like living standards are getting worse. A lot of people are feeling like the cost of living's gone up. We were talking before the cost of groceries now. People feel like their lives are getting worse, and Labour aren't speaking to that. There's no solution.
And that's a brilliant point, and that's what people are seeing. The price of groceries, I'm glad you brought that up, is astronomical now. If you look at even fruit, the price of that, or meat, and yet you've got... And whilst I understand the need to get to a greener landscape, it's the timescale I have a massive issue with. It's also, it's uncosted. And to get to net zero, the cost of net zero is so large, we don't even know how big it is.
We're behind anyway. We're completely behind. So we've put that target in, lowered it to 95%. I mean, we set... Even for heat pumps, we set a target for 600,000.
We did, we're nowhere
Last year, we only did 60,000, which is 10%. And I actually think what we're doing is we're shoehorning people down a certain way of this is what you need to do, which is the renewable direction, but there's so many other options.
I would agree. Now, also, the cost of net zero is 3 trillion a year. 3 trillion a year. And that is money that needs to come from somewhere. Now, I would argue that actually what the government needs to do is to come up with a story. Yeah. Here's where we're going. Defence of the nation has to be #1, doesn't it?
Yeah, I'd agree with that, and I think, you know, I think there is a case for actually, if we can get back more control of our energy systems, then, you know, in the long term, bills will come down. I think that's partly the reason why bills have gone up so much last year, is because, like, we are reliant on gas from other places. And I think Ed Miliband has made that point, actually, that, you know, in the long term, if we can move more towards renewable, we will have more control over our own energy systems. The problem is that we keep selling it off to foreign.
Oh, well, I'm glad you brought that up, because
foreign nations.
Well, just in terms of that, isn't that the problem? Because we need to keep control. We're in a very unstable world. I was just looking this morning, weirdly, at that exact point. British Gas, British owned. E.ON, owned by Germany. EDF, a big French company. OVO Energy, which is owned by Imagination Industries. Scottish Power, owned by Iberdrola. These are all... Plus, you've got the asset and investment funds, which are all run out of the Middle East. So what are we doing?
Yeah, well, in the UK as well, we've got some really innovative companies. I mean, Innovate UK have given so much money to people who can produce net zero products, but we can't commercialise them, so we have to go outside. Because the bureaucracy, you can't get them through the government. The testing takes 2 years. For a small business like me to test something, it's £100,000 and it's going to take me 2 years, where we can help bridge the gap now. There's loads of companies in this country. However, we can't access the funding because it's going out of the country to other countries.
Lots of other messages coming in. I'm saying, asking this morning, has the government got its priorities right? Steve Smedley, good morning to you. Steve said, the government thinks it's got its priorities right, but they are not the priorities of the British people. Pithy, I think. I'm in the middle of our head-to-head with Joe Ryle, former Labour advisor, and joining him, Fiona Conor, managing director of Trust Electric Heating, both of them looking resplendent in their red festive jumpers. Now, let's just move on to talking about Keir Starmer. There was a really interesting article which was written in The Telegraph. He's been in office for 5 months. This government, according to this article and the author, says is the worst in half a century. The Prime Minister is doubling down on every mistake, every prejudice, every tenet of failed orthodoxy that has ruined Britain. He is a true believer. He can't and he won't change. Is that the problem? Does Starmer see what is going on? Does he see how unpopular he is? Or is he now so immune to it that he's just carrying on?
I don't think he sees it, do you? I don't think he sees that he's unpopular. I think he put a Labour manifesto in, and I think he's changed it, and he keeps changing his targets, and he's quite fluid with what he's doing. And I think he's got too many things.
But you see, so this is so you were a former Labour advisor under Corbyn. Now, clearly, when you come into power, which for many Labour people was a very exciting moment, you would tread really carefully in your first few months, wouldn't you? Yeah. Look at Donald Trump. Donald Trump has set out his stall already. He's already saying what he's going to do. Let's just look at what they did. The first thing they did was stole money off elderly people. It's a terrible look, however you slice and dice that. Then he gave away strategic military assets, of course, the Chagos Islands. That many people have said is a matter of national security. The Elgin marbles look like they're going next. What would you have said to Starmer? Let's say you were a fan of Starmer. He gets into power. What would your advice be?
I think he needs to recognise how much the British people felt like they were suffering, actually, after a long time of austerity. You know, we've had Brexit, we've had lots of big events that have been difficult in many ways, and I think he hasn't recognised... He's a bit of a lawyer, isn't he? He's quite bureaucratic. I don't think that people don't connect with him on a human level. People don't get a sense that there's much emotion there, and I think people actually really needed that. Needed someone they could believe in, who was going to say, actually, you know, it's going to be hard. Yes, we get that, but I am going to like really commit to making people's lives better. And it's not coming through, you know. And it's making also they've kept the child benefit cut there as well, which is again causing more poverty. And I think it was a bad start. And let's hope
there's too many surprises, isn't there? There's too many surprises.
None of that was in the manifesto, yeah.
But you're right. He lacks humanity. He lacks compassion, and he's also as a Dalek. He is a Dalek. And then there is another Dalek, which is Rachel Reeves sitting next to him, and she's unveiled this budget as an employer yourself. What did you think when you saw the budget?
Well, I was quite depressed, actually. I mean, the national insurance is going to cost me over £50,000 a year. Just the national insurance.
How are you going to pay for that?
Well, we're just going to have to stabilise, because especially now in the news that they don't know if they're going to come back to the private sector for some more money, for some more tax money. It's like pushing my business uphill, trying to grow with handbrake on. That's how difficult and challenging it is at the moment with the government.
Did you feel the government was on your side?
No, I didn't. No. I think the net zero policies are definitely on our side, and that will help innovation.
But that's because
in the
of
UK.
your business, your type of business.
However, I think the increases they've put in, the national insurance they've put in, now the uncertainty whether they're going to come back for more taxes, where they're going to get this money from.
What do you say to James Dyson? He says the Chancellor inflicted an egregious act of self-harm, and I agree with him.
Yes.
He says, why would anyone start a company in the UK, the hit delivered by Labour to business, the destruction of British family-owned businesses, and this is all about inheritance tax and passing them on, of course, if you have a wholly owned business, because you could pass that business to relatives tax-free. Essentially, this government is not on the side of business, it's on the side of public sector unions.
And SMEs employ 61% of the workforce. We are the core, David, at the whole of this country, and we're just being hit and hit and hit.
Would Corbyn's government have been more on the side, do you think, with the business?
I think they would have taxed wealth, and I think that's what they haven't done. I agree, I wouldn't have put that burden on employers through national insurance, and I think actually...
What would you have done?
I think we need to tax wealth. I think for some reason, I don't know why we're scared of it, I don't think it needs to be a really scary thing. The billionaires have massively grown their incomes, particularly since COVID. I mean, you could even just tax back some of the money they've made since COVID, and I would put the focus on taxing wealth, because I'm sorry, when people are really struggling in this country...
What do you define as wealth?
Well, there's different stats on it, but even just a meagre tax on the top 0.5% could have raised that same amount of money that we've raised through employers and national insurance, and I think that's where the focus should be. When everyone's struggling, that seems fair to me.
So what's going on inside the Labour Party? Why have they done what they have done?
I think they're holding on to a past era. I mean, you know, they talk a lot about growth, and I'm not against growth, but people need to feel like they're actually benefiting from that growth, and that's, I think, what's happening in the American elections as well, you know, where people are saying, well, you know, all the statisticians, the experts are saying the economy's thriving, everything's great, and people are saying, well, hang on, it's not great for me, I can't afford groceries anymore. And I think the focus really needs to be much more on living standards, and I would personally tax wealth a lot more than they have done.
Do you think that Starmer should sack Rhys?
It's quite interesting, because if I actually looked at our business, and I'm the CEO of my business, my financial director wouldn't put a budget forward without me approving it. So why are we using her as a scapegoat? Well, of course he has. You know.
But do you think he understands what he did?
Well, he should understand. If he's running this country, he needs to understand.
Well, one would hope.
Yes.
Do you think he does?
Probably not, no.
Do you think he does?
Probably not, no. But, you know, I think it is a bit unfair to blame Rachel Reeves for everything. But at the same time, again, she's not very charismatic, she's not very appealing, she's not someone you can relate to.
You're being kind with not
maybe
very
I'm being kind. Well, there we
charismatic.
go. But something needs to change. They can't carry on just changing missions to milestones to...
Well, then that creates more uncertainty, doesn't it? Because then we go back to what we did in the previous government, where somebody else takes the scapegoat route, and then we go round and round and round.
I agree.
Yeah.
I don't think sacking her at this point would be smart, but...
You wouldn't?
Not at this point.
It would destabilise him, wouldn't it?
Not at this point, but it's, you know, if they're this unpopular again in 6 months' time, I mean, they're going to be in real trouble, I think.
Lots of messages. Mick in Wallington, one of our regulars. Good morning to you. Starmer and Reeves are deaf. The normally silent majority must get the message across that they have had enough. Good morning, David, says Peter. Good morning, Peter. Glad to see you back. I don't trust anything the government says. The last lot were bad enough. This bunch are even worse. What this country needs is reform, and the sooner the better. Starmer, this is according to Nick Morgan, morning, is slowly realising the inevitable difficulty of a false majority based on only 20% of the eligible electorate. This is a one-term parliament, thank goodness. Just in terms of the panel this morning, I like this. Hi, David. Sorry, why are your panel believing so much in this net zero? 1, the climate has always changed for thousands of years. 2, no humans running a business from their home and therefore be taxed extra. This is Janice. 3, the scientists to put out the same storyline are afraid to lose their funding. This is from scientists who are basically biased because they get funding.
Don't agree with that.
OK.
From what I've seen, 99% of scientists agree that climate change, is being caused by humans. I don't think we should even be debating that.
The climate has always changed.
Not at this pace, and I do think it is unprecedented. From everything I've read, I know that people have got different opinions from what they've read on. You can read anything on the internet these days, but I'm sorry, 99% of scientists do agree.
I don't want to go down this route too much. We'll end up down the rabbit hole. Lisa, good morning to you. Lisa says, now you were a spad to grizzly old Corbyn. What age were you when you were a spad to Corbyn? What life experience and sage advice did you give him?
I was like 27 at that point, right. So like 25 to 30. I mean, he's a lovely man, Corbyn. I know that the media didn't always portray that, but deep down he was a lovely guy. He was very, very kind. I do think he would have been better actually for his country. I think it would have. Things didn't turn out very well, did it, with Boris Johnson?
Really.
I think it would have been better under Corbyn. There would have been problems, of course. He wasn't perfect, but he was a nice man, and that for me that felt kind of refreshing at the time. Yeah.
I suppose he believed in his ideals. I mean, you knew where you were with Corbyn. Isn't that fair?
Yeah, I would say. I
don't know what I believe.
However, a nice man doesn't mean that he runs the country well.
Talking of whether someone is a nice man, I want your thoughts on this, please. I couldn't believe this when I read it. Sadiq Khan is set to receive a knighthood in the New Year's honours list. He's receiving the award allegedly for political and public service. The first Muslim mayor of the capital elected for the 3rd term. Also in there, Emily Thornberry, who may well get a damehood. We've got Andy Street, the former West Midlands mayor, who was defeated in the local elections in May after 7 years in office, is set to be a recipient. Nick Gibb, who was schools minister. I'm sick of this, that you just basically get your cronies, you shove them a gong, stick them in the upper house. It's got to stop.
Yeah, I probably agree. I mean, I'm not from London, so we were talking about this earlier. I'm not from London.
Well,
so
let me tell you, Sadiq Khan has single-handedly destroyed London by his 20-mile-an-hour limits, also the cost of the tube, all sorts of things I could go on about Sadiq Khan. But the point is, if we said faith in politicians is at an all-time low, why are we rewarding these people with honours?
Yeah.
Thoughts? Either of you?
I mean, I do think in general the honour system does need looking at, because I do think across the board people seem to be getting honours for all sorts of, and people just hand, and lots of favours as well. There's definitely some dodgy honours going on, I would agree as well. I mean, on Sadiq Khan, I don't love Sadiq Khan. I think he's done some good things. I guess for him it's just in recognition of how long he's been mayor for. It has been quite a long time.
Should that get you an honour?
I don't know. I don't massively believe in the honour systems in general, but looking at the other type of people that get them, he probably deserves one.
What about Sue Gray?
She's got one as well.
Well, apparently Sue Gray is going to get a seat. Is going to get a seat in the House of Lords.
Yeah. Well, there we go. I mean
this is just rubbish.
Well, Labour initially did commit to abolishing the House of Lords, and now they rode back, and now they're only getting rid of the kind of life peers that are there. So I think the House of Lords needs further reform. I don't think that's far enough.
I think we'd agree. Let's just go back to working from home. Apparently young people and grumpy old colleagues will benefit if you shun working from home. This is according to Baroness Bottomley of Nettlestone, who seems like a very clever lady to me. She's 76. She says she is viscerally opposed to the shift from office working to home-based arrangements. I do not believe that working from home is a healthy thing to do. We are social people. We need to go to work. Young people need to go to work to see sort of grumpy old women like me at work, and grumpy old people like me need to see young people who can explain TikTok to them.
Yeah, probably very, very true. I think it's isolation, which we spoke about earlier. I think working at home, you create isolation. I think it's great for culture, mixing different age groups and everything. So, yeah.
It's true, isn't it?
I think there's lots of... I do agree. I think there's lots of downsides to working from home, particularly the lonely thing, not getting to meet people. You know, however, having said that, I think people should be going to the office 4 days a week max.
I know you say that, but I mean, I'm a freelancer. It would never work like that for a freelancer or someone who works in a creative industry.
There's different ways of doing it. There's lots of creative industries we've worked with, companies that have already done it, implemented a 4-day working week, and maybe there's space for a mix. Maybe it's 3 days a week. Why do I want a 4-day working week? Because I think 5-day working week is
too much.
It's too much. It doesn't leave enough time for it doesn't leave enough time for all the other things in life.
Like what?
Like friends, family, chores, hobbies, you know, all sorts of things that, particularly if you're a parent as well.
Yeah, you've got the weekend.
It's not enough.
Why isn't it the weekend? What
5 of your 7 days a week. You should get out
of bed at the weekend, shouldn't you?
5 of your 7 days a week at work, I think, is too much. And it's been 100 years since we moved from a 6-day week to a 5-day week. We've got to start somewhere. I think 4-day week first.
What about 2-day week?
No, well, look, on a serious level, the point should be about, can you get your work done efficiently, effectively, you know, focusing on those kind of... I think increasingly the companies that adopted 4-day working weeks are being more productive.
I just say, Let's just move on and ask, do you think your name is dying out? So apparently Matthew Ryan and other extremely popular names for boys in the 90s are going out of fashion. This is the research from this week. Lauren, Hannah, Rebecca, Amy and Meghan, they're out. The top name in this country is now Mohammed. This is baby boys in England and Wales. It depends how you spell it, though, because they've basically compiled all the different spellings. It's the first time that one spelling of the Islamic name has topped the charts. Is overtaken Noah. Now I looked at your names to see whether you were popular or not. Joe and Fiona, look, here's your graph. You're both. Oh, you can't see that, but you've both.
Am I the lowest there?
You've plummeted. You're out of fashion.
Yeah, I was only in fashion in the 70s.
You were.
That was it when I was given my name.
I'm surprised at yours because I thought Joe would be.
I mean, I think based on my experience, I think that might be a good thing. When I was in school, there was like about 4 Joes in my class, and it was actually hard to kind of like have any identity of so many Joes. So maybe it's a good thing. It's less Joes.
Is it Joseph or Joe?
Just Joe.
Just Joe?
Yeah.
You should call yourself Just Joe.
Yeah, it is rare. Most people call Joseph.
Right. And just very quickly, a new nightclub is opening. Do you go nightclubbing?
I'm going tonight, actually.
Ooh, where
are you
There's a
going to
club
put a
called
stick
Fold in London I'm going to.
Oh, right. Is that a cool club?
I haven't been before, but I hear it's quite cool.
Oh, right. Well, a new nightclub is opening this week. Here's a strict rule, and this is about social media and living in the present. There's a strict rule that your smartphone camera must be covered with a sticker. This is Amber's in Manchester. It's the latest in a handful of venues in the UK to enforce the policies. Apparently in cities like Berlin, which I've never been to, weirdly, it's the norm. And I think that there is something really interesting in this about living in the moment, isn't there?
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't have had phones when I was out there.
I mean, the trouble you caused.
Yeah, but I mean, we wouldn't have had phones and we enjoyed the music, where now you go to a nightclub or you go to any venue and the younger generation are sat there and they're brilliant at selfies, aren't they? But they're capturing a moment that sometimes is not true. It's not enjoying the moment. No. They're actually staging their selfies.
Well, don't you see that at concerts as well? I often think, why are you filming it? Just enjoy it.
Yeah, I find that really jarring. You've got a crowd in front of you at a gig or whatever and everyone's got their phones up and filming themselves. And you just think, let's enjoy the moment, be in the moment. So I think it's a good thing. It's only one club as well, I think it's a good thing.
And I was talking about...
No, there are multiple clubs.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, I think it's great. I think it's good.
And I think it's staging with a phone, isn't it? And what they capture on the phone. I don't know how they're going to enforce that, though. How are they going to enforce keeping that sticker on? No, what about if you just go off to powder your nose or something and you take the sticker off? I mean, how are they going to
You're a
enforce
rebel,
that?
you are.
Yeah.
You were told to keep the sticker on.
I think security will be looking, won't they, to make sure people...
They will. Are you doing something nice for Christmas?
Yes, I'm...
You can't remember?
No. My village is like a real Christmas village, so everything's very Christmassy.
Where's that?
You would love it. In Hambleton, in North Yorkshire.
Is that the best place to live in the country?
Yes, it is. We sing round the tree on Christmas Eve. We had mulled wine and mince pies. It's amazing.
Oh, no. Where do you live?
I live in East London, but I'm actually going to Portugal for Christmas this year. My girlfriend's family, yeah.
Well, lovely. By the way, apparently the happiest place to live in Britain, according to this article in the Daily Mail, is in Woodbridge, in Suffolk, which is very near me. So there you go. So we are the happiest people, obviously, in Suffolk, in East Anglia, and there's a reason for that. Joe Ryle, former Labour advisor, Fiona Conor, Managing Director of Trust Electric Heating. Thank you very much indeed. That was today's Head to Head.
Head to Head.